And we are back. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Diary Room. We are back today to pull 6 more players, get 3 more losers, 3 more winners, find some more people to go through to the next round of this bracket of Big Brother players on our quest to find the best Big Brother player of all time. We'll do it someday, Aman. I am Matt, and that is Aman. Aman, how are you?
Yo. Yes, we will. I always forget just how long this podcast is going to be. And I'm like, we have a journey, but I'm happy to be back and trudging along on what is this, episode 9?
12? I think 12.
Oh my God. See, I'm already losing track.
You're behind.
But yes, happy to be back and to eliminate some more people and put some more people through.
Yes, and we are joined today by a very special guest. We have been dipping into the bench of the obviously incredible bench of RHAP podcasters, of which we are both a part of as well. We have another very special guest with us here today. It is Aysha. How are you doing, Aysha?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. I have adored watching this podcast blossom because it's such a creative idea and such an ambitious project. So props to y'all.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even think about what I'm going to do 2 days from now. So the fact that y'all have set up, like, made this project that's going to last over a year is amazing. But it's so entertaining because you really get to like go into the vault of, well, what you think about all of these people. Because, you know, the tired, like, oh, everybody just think like Dan's the best player of all time, right? But then when you really get into the thick of it, it's really nice to kind of analyze different gameplay and thinking about the dynamics of each different cast and how that will take that plays into things. So anyway, I'm very excited to be here. And yeah, can't wait to get into it.
Love it. I'm actually most excited for the off season of Big Brother as BB26 comes to an end, a couple of weeks away. I'm excited to have Big Brother to still talk about in those off weeks because I feel like I'm usually like a couple weeks in, I'm like, oh, I miss it, and we don't have BBCAN anymore, so it's really going to be longer. That hopefully we'll be able to help fill for us and for anybody out there to just keep the convo going.
Yeah, the lack of Big Brother Canada, like I feel like I'm a little bit primed for it because of the fact that the past 2 seasons have been a little wonky and the dailies and all that stuff. So I feel like it's not going to hit as hard as it maybe would have had it not already been on the decline, but it is going to be a sizable gap between the two. Unless, the American version decides to surprise us with another celebrity edition or some random spinoff, which they are known to do from time to time. So you never know. We might get something in the fall or in the winter. Who knows? We might get reindeer games too.
Reindeer games
That's what
too.
I was about to say. Yeah, reindeer
that
games too. I mean, I feel like it did really well.
Yeah,
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Such a quick, like, little snack. We didn't have to commit to 99 days. So I thoroughly enjoyed reindeer games, and I wouldn't even dismiss a Valentine's Day game.
I was gonna say that. Like, if they were like, oh well, we can't have the lot on Christmas, but like February is open.
Exactly. So I think this is a great time for this because like that void we're gonna fill in the spring with BBCAN is just like that'll be tough to see like what's gonna fill that gap. Are we gonna get another version of the US somewhere else? Are they gonna try to do something different in Canada that's Big Brother related? I don't know.
I think I saw something on Twitter a couple days ago about I've gotten been in and out over the past couple of weeks because I've moved, but I thought I saw like an article talking about like how there already are in talks about Big Brother Canada and what that might look like, getting it brought back and everything. So it's definitely not as dead, I think, as one might think. So I'm still holding out hope. But I think, hey, maybe a year off or two will do the show some good. We've already talked about how much better it can be at certain things than the US version. So who knows? Maybe a year off or two will make it even better if it is brought back. So fingers crossed.
What you saw was actually the executive producer, maybe Aaron Brock and Arissa both did an interview, and it was like the first time that both of them together had talked about the prospects of the future of the show, and obviously like thanking everybody for all of the support over the years. It was interesting to hear, particularly Aaron talk about like because Arissa's talks to us as much as she possibly can, and we know her story, we know her fandom and everything, and her connection to us. But Aaron Brock is not always always in front of a camera. And I think that's who it was. But yeah,
I think so
that's her
too.
name.
That's coming
Yeah.
back to me now. Yeah.
And just to hear like, you know, the discussion about how Big Brother is such an active product with the fans, where they like are obviously well aware of like the feedback they get in real time, some of it good, some of it not so good. Arissa talking a little bit about the feeds being gone in the last 2 years, and they still tried to deliver the best product that they possibly could, which they did, as far as I'm concerned, in BBCAN12. But that was more so a product of the cast than anything else. So overall, yeah, I feel pretty optimistic. We'll see what happens down the line. Aysha, I do want to ask you something that we like to ask people when we remember to do so. What was your first season of Big Brother?
Ooh. So my first season of Big Brother was Big Brother 5. So I was
Wow.
probably too young to be watching it, but I definitely was
Yeah.
watching it. Definitely was watching it because I vividly remember how like I just loved everything about that season with the twin twist and then Nokomis and Cowboy, and I just thought that was really cool. Because like my mom has watched Big Brother since day one. And so then it was finally like Big Brother 5 was when I was like, okay, let me jump in and see what this is all about. And then I went back and watched seasons 2 through 4. And so, yeah, it's been one of those things where I haven't always rewatched every season.
Mhm.
Because you know, like watching it in real time over the course of my entire life, sometimes it's like, okay, of course we talk about it on these podcasts and stuff so we can
Right.
think back to like, oh, that rings a bell. But I have been interested in doing like a full rewatch, just curious,
Mhm.
because you know, you just experience, obviously watching as like
Mhm.
a 13-year-old would be different watching now as a 32-year-old. So
Mhm.
so yeah, now that I think about it, that feels like such a long time ago, but to be still so relevant in our lives is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often feel similarly, Asia. Just like I feel like there a lot of the time there isn't any like I don't feel as compelled to rewatch seasons because of the fact that we talk about all of them so often, year after year after year, that it feels like I'm already replaying it
Yeah.
mentally. But I did a couple months ago. I started rewatching Big Brother 23, and it really did make me want to go back and rewatch other ones too, because it did feel a lot different. You know, just already knowing how everything ends, obviously, but just like being at a different spot and looking back on people's games really does color the perspective a lot more. So I definitely recommend it. I know a lot of people have already been rewatching, so they were like, "Yeah, welcome to the club." But I don't
Right.
know, like, yeah, it definitely is. It's a journey. It's a journey on the way back.
Especially like you're talking about 23, like watching the recent seasons back in some way, it's like, okay, yeah, I just lived them a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, but it still feels very different to go back and see the episodes, because you're not rewatching episodes. Sometimes like we're all guilty of skipping an episode throughout a season. If you just miss it and you never get a chance to go back, like there's episodes in the recent seasons that I feel like I could be seeing for the first time ever, or just you're live tweeting and you miss it. So I don't know, it's just such a strange experience, especially the recent ones, let alone the ones from years ago, that it's like we talk about all these players on this podcast, but like if I went back and saw Yvette's game full through, like maybe I would have had a more impassioned speech that would have convinced Aman and Corey to send her through in that first episode. But you know, that's neither here nor there.
Oh
So
well, she gone.
oh well. Which
You
good
mean y'all didn't
transition for.
rewatch every, 25 seasons, 12 Big Brother Candace seasons, the 3 celebrity before starting this?
Uh, about
Imagine.
that.
Hey,
You're
we
like,
are, Matt has been, rewatching a couple of seasons. I just rewatched BB23. I plan to now go back and watch BB18. And so I'm kind of just
ooh,
like going through, like, I'm doing it sporadically,
yeah,
just to help us get back into it, especially because, we're going to be talking about every single player multiple times, because we have losers bracket podcasts, we have battle back podcasts, and all of that. So it is good to be able to like be like, you know what, I didn't remember a lot about that person's games the first time that they came up. So then it gives you a lot of license to go back and watch the other ones. And then there's like a wealth of resources. Like this is like one of the best times to be a Big Brother fan, because now you done had so many podcasts that exist now. And then in terms of like Big Brother YouTube, there are so many compilations and so many abridged versions of the seasons that you can go back and watch, that there is a wealth of information if you want to go back and witness a lot of stuff. And then there are
Mhm.
some people that I don't know how they did this, but God bless them, that have like lots and lots and lots of clips of old live feed footage. Like I saw like a whole like 3 days worth of BB11 footage like last year. I was like, this is who did this? Like, who recorded this? Like, how was it legal? But you can find it if you really want it. So
yeah. All that was a good plug and reminder. Patreon.com/the diary room for the losers bracket, which we recently just recorded our second one of it. By the time this episode comes out, it will be a couple weeks in the past, but it will still be the most recent losers bracket. We took from the 6th episode that we did to the 10th episode. I think it ended with Kevin Jacobs' episode. I took all those losers and crowned another ultimate loser, which will go on to some big losers bracket down the road. Aysha, did you get a chance at all, or did you have any thoughts or takes on any matchups that we've had so far that we got totally right and no disagreements whatsoever, or the opposite?
I think for the most part, I would say 90% of the previous matchups I do agree with. I think the ones that stand out to me that I was kind of like, oh, I could have seen that going another way I believe it was not. That was correct. That is right. So Jack Owens and Raven. And I know it was close on the Twitter poll, but y'all were unanimous. So I don't know. I just feel like when I'm thinking of the best players in general, I'm thinking of when can you drop them in any season and they fare well, right? And so I'm thinking like a Jack would do better because of his archetype over a Raven.
Fair.
And that's my only argument.
That actually brings up a point that I feel like I hadn't thought about until just now. That we see a lot of in the recent seasons, the older house guest doesn't do as great all the time. And if Jack was dropped into any of these recent seasons, I mean, at, I guess the same age that he was then, is he following along that, like, I don't know, Glenn, Steve, Cliff, Angela route of just obviously being separated from everybody else in age? We talk about age a lot on this podcast. I'm waiting for somebody to be like, stop, leave the old people alone.
Yeah. The only thought about that is an older player playing again understands the gravity and like the importance of the social game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like an older player coming in again, like even if we saw a Glenn again, I feel like he would be thinking, okay, I need to make sure I can connect with people in some type of way because that's what messed me up last time. Even the people that made it further, like if we think of like a Kevin from Big Brother 19, I think still coming into like that's something that I feel like he did well was his social game. And so coming back, he knows like, okay, that's the one thing I need to maintain is my social game if I'm not able to beat out these younger house guests in the competitions. So yeah, it is an interesting thing to think about. It's just like, yeah, these recent seasons we've seen a lot of older people going out earlier, but I do think if they played again, they understand the game a little bit better in terms of how they need to play that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Food for thought.
Okay. So it was Jack and Raven, maybe, questionable. We've certainly heard that from time to time. So understandable there, but any others?
Yeah, everything else I definitely agreed with. I didn't see an argument. Yeah, y'all are hitting the nail on the head. I think like one that I was like kind of going back and forth on, but Twitter was Twitter was like far beyond saying like that was the right decision was Ian versus Jed. And I think it just depends on the cast because you really can make an argument for how their games fare really well. I thought that was an amazing matchup because it's like, yeah, you see Jed and how he was able to use his strengths to make it so far in the game. And then we know what Ian was able to do in BB14 at least. So it's kind of like, what do the people value, that they are playing against? And I think that's one of the arguments why people are always like unanimously thinking about Dan is they're thinking, okay, I was able to see him play with completely different people on 2 occasions and adapt, right?
Yeah.
And I think adaptability is just like one of the biggest things in terms of what makes someone a great Big Brother player, which I think Jed would be able to do. But I do understand the argument for Ian over Jed.
Now, I will use that as an opportunity to go back to the world of Patreon, where not usually going to tip our hand too much as to what goes on over there, because the people that
You want
sign
to
up
give
to
it
be over
away?
there, yeah, I don't want to give away all the secrets and spoilers. But I will tell you about one of the matchups that we had on the most recent losers bracket, because you bring up Jed, and on that episode that we recorded of the losers of that bunch, we had a matchup that came up because we do the same thing. We put the players on the wheel and we have matchups one by one until we whittle it down from 15 to 1. We make the math work. Jed came up in a matchup against BB16 Victoria. And one of us, I'll keep it as vague as possible, but one of us were very actively rooting for Jed to not be considered the worst of the two. One of us were very much someone might be giving away how that went. We're actively rooting for Victoria to not be the worst of those two. We had to get a special guest on the phone to help break the tie because we couldn't do it ourselves. Jed
Oh,
versus
and no
Victoria.
spoilers on who the special guest was.
No spoilers.
Uh,
Previous guest of the podcast. Jed versus Victoria. Who you got? Who's better? Who's either way you want to go with? Aysha.
Jed versus Victoria.
Jed, who obviously made a very big mistake.
Uh-huh.
Victoria.
That yeah. We are talking Spicy V, right?
No, sorry, Victoria BB16.
Oh, okay. Wait.
Sorry for the
Okay.
confusion.
Sorry. Okay.
Because now are you sitting there thinking this isn't a close contest?
Yeah.
Thank
Exactly.
you.
Now I'm
no.
like, okay, I'm thinking, oh, we're thinking in the same league, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, we just went from
I need a rope to like pull my co-host closer to the microphone and get him to speak right now because he is shrunk in his chair.
Major League Baseball to T-ball is kind of where we just went.
You know what? I will forever stand by my choice and my opinion, okay? I just feel, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to allow.
And you shouldn't,
Matt
because again, that was
me this
had
way.
there.
I'm not doing it, okay?
You do it enough here. It's okay. We're good. But I'm just letting everybody know that was a fun time, a lot of stress, and we literally had to phone a friend to help break a tie. Usually what we
That's
do over there
funny.
is we say we have to agree because this is kind of low stakes. It's just the losers. It's not that hard to decipher which one of these players is worse, but we couldn't break that tie. Anyway, let's begin to get into who we're going to pull today. Aysha, do you have a favorite season or multiple seasons like that you I guess have your as your go-tos if you were gonna put on a random season?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say put people onto those seasons. I have put a lot of people onto Big Brother over the course of the years, and
That
what I
works too.
always tell, yeah, and I always tell them, okay, my go-tos are Big Brother 10, Big Brother 7. If you really want to enjoy Big Brother 7, watch 2 through 6 if you have the time. 14. And if you want a recent season that is solid, I'd say 20 and 23.
Okay.
Okay.
So
those are all solid, yeah.
I would love to get any of those seasons today.
Yeah.
So we could talk through one of those great players, potentially. Okay, sounds good. Do you have a favorite BB can as I set the wheel up?
Oh, a favorite BB can. I think BB Can 2 was great. I did enjoy 5. I know how people feel about it.
That's
And
my favorite.
really? Yeah. It just hits, you know? And then I did really enjoy BB Can 10. I would say I think it's it could be a recency thing, but I just enjoyed it, and the fact that we podcasted about it, I know that probably, makes it have a special place in our hearts. But yeah, I would probably have to say 2, 5, and 10.
I mean, you and 10 have a very special relationship when it comes to online. No, that was the video.
Oh yes. I was like,
Wait,
I'm like
I
waiting to
forgot.
see if
I
it
went
clicked.
viral. I went viral, everybody. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I literally just pulled the clip very recently for a
Literally
tweet.
recording myself like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see Josh take Betty. This is about to be great. I was ready to record my excitement, right?
Mhm.
And literally he cuts Betty and I was like, and then you see Taryn pop up.
And
Meerkat
like
Taryn.
Yeah.
the fact that like, we're still what was the 21 or 2022? So Asia's just got the mask
And the
on, but
mask.
even
Yeah.
with the mask on, you can see her whole jaw has dropped.
Yeah.
I think you're
Yeah, that
screaming
was
like, "Oh
wild.
my god!"
Exactly. You
I
gotta show
still feel for
your
Betty in that moment. That was crazy.
Yeah,
oh, I know. I know. Oh my
quite the
gosh.
video. All right, well, with all that said, Aman, shall we spin a wheel?
Let's let it rip, baby.
Anybody that you're looking for that we haven't, talked to season about, or I don't know, players or anything like that, Aman, that we you would like to see soon?
I'm trying to think by seasons. I would like to see a little bit more. No, we got quite. No. I think most of the people. I think there are specific people that I want to see, obviously, but in terms of like seasons, I think it's been a relatively nice spread so far. So I think
Okay.
I'm along for the ride. I'm enjoying
Okay.
it.
I feel like I'm always rooting against BBUS players coming up because I just like to talk about obviously BBCAN. Like I just like a lot of those seasons. But like when a celebrity comes up or when an OTT comes up, I'm like, ooh, look at that. Like let's talk about them.
Oh,
Yeah.
how cute. Yeah.
So all right, we will spin and get our first player of the evening or the morning, depending on when you're listening to this, off the board.
The afternoon.
Pretty full wheel today. First up, first matchup is going to be Kiki Wallace from BBCAN15.
Wow. Come on, Kiki.
Kiki,
Otherwise,
who
Kiara was her real name, right? Was it Kira? There were two
Kira.
Kiras, and then she went by Kiki because the other Kira was there. Got it.
Who my first memory when as soon as I see that name is her being carried out of the house while she had sprained her ankle or something like that. She was on crutches, and I think it was Anthony Douglas, maybe one of the pretty boys, carried her to the front door where she was taken by a production assistant, carried to the studio with Arissa. That is my strongest memory of Kiki.
Yeah, that is the mental image that I got as soon as I saw her name pop up as well. All right, should I read the blurb?
Please do.
All right. Kiki, otherwise known as Kiera, was placed in the minority from very early on in the game due to her open targeting of member of the Majority Alliance, Adam, and his showmance, Sam. Despite this, Kiera was able to form strong bonds with Stephania, Damien, and Dane. After Sam won HOH in week 5, Kiera was placed on the block as a pawn alongside Mark. Sam changed her target to Kiera, and Dane turned his back on her. Kiera decided not to use the blood POV, and Kiera was evicted.
I think it's just Kira.
Kiera, yeah.
I think. Kiki. Yeah, Kiki works. I think she went by Kiki the most
yeah.
often in the house.
Yeah.
Okay. BBCAN7.
Photo, I might add, and those shoes are like those shoes are everything to me.
Yeah, they're a statement for sure.
Aysha, BBCAN7 was not on your list of preferred BBCAN seasons.
Only because of the dominant alliance of the pretty boys. Because when you have such a powerful alliance running the season, it takes away from the excitement. You know, you don't know which way. It's fun when you don't know when the power shifts, and you don't. That's why people love Big Brother US6 so much. Like when the power is shifting back and forth, that's when it's fun. But when it's like just completely run and it's just dominated by a group of people, it's just like, okay. That was okay. So for her, like she doesn't specifically stand out in my mind for that season. I mean, obviously, yeah, I do remember her being a part of the season, and it's just kind of like, what did she do that made her like an active, like, did she have an active role in that game, like during that?
Yeah, that's where what you had literally just said factors in a big way for the BBCAN7 players. That dominant alliance put the brakes on pretty much anybody that wasn't the four of them
Yeah.
from being able to play an active role. Because I remember Kiki being totally fine socially, like Aman was just saying, like reading off people that she was aligned with the Estes of the world and Damien's, and I feel like she was just friendly enough with so many people in there. But it was also the kind of thing where anybody that showed any signs of intelligence in that house were knocked right down as fast as possible by those boys who said the four of us to the end. They all had their plus ones, their, you know, side whoever's that were, you know, helping them along in the game. And Esty was linked with Dane. Kiki wasn't. Kiki was just Esty's additional number, so it did Dane no good to have Esty also have Kiki in the house. So as far as like what did Kiki do, she again was pretty good socially as far as I remember, and then broke her ankle or twisted her ankle or something like that on the way out. But truly never had a chance to make her own name in the game because of the pretty boys, and that is the same case for a lot of people that season.
Yeah, I mean, she was sort of, you know, she was nominated 3 times, went home on the 3rd try. You had the veto used on her twice, one of them obviously by herself as she took herself off the block. So she was capable, I think, somewhat in competition. So she got a little bit of stuff going there, and so she unfortunately injured herself. But yeah, as Matt said, this sort of like the beginning of the season really sort of was the story of a lot of like really intelligent players that were willing to go after the power structure getting axed immediately. Two of like the more pronounced ones in my head being Chelsea and what was the black girl's name? Oh my God.
Kaylin.
Not Caitlin.
Close.
I would never forget her that speech that she had. She
Mhm.
said, "Everybody hold out your hand." Let me just save that for when she pops up. But but yeah, I think Kira sort of like fell into that category of just being someone that was not going to be controlled. And they knew that there really wasn't any use for her moving forward in the game, and to have her is just to give more power to people that are outside of the alliance. And so, I mean, I think that there was, I think that she definitely was able to. I think she was probably one of the more like socially adept of people that were not in the Pretty Boys or in the Pretty Boy parachutes. So I think that sort of like kept her. She's one of the last to go before the Pretty Boys could have like ran the gamut afterwards. So I think that there's definitely something to be said there. And yeah, it's always so interesting to talk about players that exist within these seasons where there is such a mighty force controlling the game, because it's like, okay, so what would that look like had that not been there? So I'll give her props for at least knowing that she was not in the power structure. But other than that, yeah, it was her days were numbered, and then getting injured obviously doesn't help. So
yeah, I think she proved herself to be a great social player, but it's also like we don't know what she's fully capable of because of the circumstances of her season. So it'd be really interesting to see, like, okay, had she not injured herself, had she not been evicted, would she have gone on? Like, could she have won even more competitions? Like, to win one, and with the competition she had in the house, like that shows, okay, she's capable. And so it would have been really interesting to see what she's capable of. But since we didn't, it's just like, okay, solid social player.
Exactly.
I am trying to look back because this is around the time where I was doing my weekly power rankings on RHAP, the blog, back in the day. And I ended up doing most of this season on Twitter, ranking throughout the weeks. And I think I deleted a bunch of those tweets according to Twitter, or it's just not working right now. But the preseason one was a blog on Robin's website. And I had her ranked coming into that season as number 2. I said that she comes off as a really intelligent and someone who could be a big gamer. I think she'll be very entertaining and outspoken. The closest this cast has to a Kayla. She won't have a hard time finding a person or group to work with. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Just I had faith in her. My top 3 that season was Chelsea, Kira, and then eventually I get a good one in Anthony, because the other 2 pre-jury. But I just remember having faith in Kiki going into the season and being very surprised when she ultimately does get taken out. Not surprised, because obviously I saw the direction the season was going in at that time, but I just thought that she had a lot more potential. And I think on a season that doesn't have a set of pretty boys dominating the game, I do think that her group of having Esty and Damien and, you know, possibly pulling in other people along the way, I think she could have gone far. I think there was definitely potential here, but
I remember everyone being very, very upset about the other Kira choosing not to use the blood veto because that was that week that she could have used it on Kira.
Mhm.
But like the other Kira had no incentive to because she was sort of sitting pretty, no pun intended. And yeah, there was just no need for it. So
yeah. So BBCAN7. I don't know if it's the first one we've
I
gotten from
think it
BBCAN7,
is.
but
I
it
think it's
feels
the
like
first
it.
one. Yeah, our first one.
So okay, there's that.
There you go. You got your BB can, Matt. You got your BB can.
I got my BBCAN,
Right.
and now I'm shuffling 1,000 times because otherwise I feel like I'll just get another BBCAN. But let's get the screen back up and spin this wheel and find who Kiki from BBCAN7 is going to go against.
Let's have a Kiki. I want to have a
Ooh.
Kiki. Lock the
I
door.
feel like whoever it is beats her automatically, but that's just
Whoa.
Damn. Now watch as somebody like freaking like
Who the heck is this?
Whose last name? Which one is that?
Justin
from
Giovinco?
Giovinco?
Is this BBCAN 4? Not BBCAN 4, BB4? I don't know that man's last name.
BB4.
The last name is throwing me off.
Oh yeah, he is from BBUS4.
This is BB4.
Okay. All right. That makes
again.
sense.
People sometimes were like, "Well, why don't you just put the season next to them?" I'm like, I like this guessing game. If I don't know the first and last name, I like to play the guessing game. Yeah, this is BB4. Right?
I take back my statement.
Let me see if I can pull. And people also sometimes I get the feedback of like, "Can you get their picture up faster?" To which I say, "I'm working as fast as I can."
Hey, look, we're we are
a two-man show.
Exactly. We're doing what we can.
Truly.
Okay.
This man with that hair, Justin from BB4, is here in the conversation.
All right, Justin. Justin quickly formed bonds with fellow exes G and Robert. Despite being on opposing sides, Justin started to form a showmance with Dana. After Dana won HOH in week 3, Justin was able to convince her to turn on her old alliance. Dana agreed and brought her ally June in as well. After Allison won HOH, she and Justin cut a deal at the expense of losing Dana. Damn. Justin won an HOH and targeted Nathan, whom he deemed as the biggest threat from the opposing side of the house. Later, Erica decided to nominate him and Robert. Despite considerations to flip the vote on Robert from Allison in June, Justin was evicted by a vote of 3-1, placing 7th.
I feel like I haven't been remembering to do this shout out as often, but that's but a shout out to the BB Wiki where we pulled all of these blurbs from to be able to remind ourselves. So don't want anybody thinking we're just taking the credit for that. BB Wiki does a lot of good work over there to keep all of this on the internet for us to remember who Justin Giovinco is. I could be saying that wrong.
Giovinco. I don't know.
And we appreciate that. And but Big Brother 4 back in the conversation here, Asia. We just actually in the very last episode, you wouldn't have been able to hear it yet. But with Lavina, we sent June song through to round 2.
Naturally.
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, Justin. Yeah, I mean, same reaction. Who? Because if you had asked me, was there a Justin that won HOH in BB4? I'd be like, no. And BB4 is like one of the seasons I've watched the most recently, in terms of like in the past 5 years or so. So it's interesting because I think like his game was really centered around not necessarily the bros, but the guys in the house. Yeah. And so that's just his archetype. And I think when you have someone who is able to connect with the other bros in the house, they just fare better naturally in this kind of like dynamic. But yeah, I'm actually surprised to even remember that he was 7th place. Like, made it far into the game. It's like,
yeah. It was that group of him, G, and Robert that, once they came together, they were able to kind of make a little bit more happen in the house than they probably would have as individuals. Also, before I get back to his gameplay, it was just like making fun of his haircut. And then I was like, my hair needs to be cut because I'm like a couple inches on the top here from exactly what he's got going on, but I will not let that
Not you
happen.
reading yourself before anybody.
Because I'm like making fun of his hair, and then I'm like, oh, I need a haircut. I'm like,
You're
oh,
like
God.
anticipating the YouTube comments.
I
Like
am, or at
Matt
least in my own
over here
head.
looking like Justin.
But I feel like to your point, Asia, about his broiness, my memory of him is, I mean, so he's Allison's ex coming into the season. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then
Mhm.
Allison ends up having whatever romantic relations that she does with Nathan. And then I remember like the Justin Nathan dynamic being, I think, a little weird naturally given those circumstances. And I feel like Justin was the type of bro that moved through that game in a way that like the type of bro that is like when you think of like a Cody Calafiore, that's like he's a bro that's going to move very similarly, but much more in a much slicker way. And Cody's going to interact with everybody and play a very strong social game where, I mean, again, I could be misremembering, but I don't have a memory of Justin doing that as well. I feel like he was a little bit more volatile, a little bit more just kind of like calling shots as he was able to, as he saw them, and not really playing the social game as much. I mean, granted, also we're
Mhm.
in early Big Brother, but for some people that came naturally, and I feel like for him, I don't remember that being the case as much.
Yeah, he definitely was not as delicate as he could have been. I do think that him sort of like knowing to how to like wheel and deal a little bit to keep himself um safe in the beginning, and then making that deal with Allison, and then going back, like he convinced Dana to cut out her old alliance, and then went ahead and like did the same to her. So I think there is like a little bit of like this Machiavellian type deal that he's got going on. But I think that when you expose yourself as someone who is willing to do something like that, it makes it really hard for them, the people that are trying to save you in Allison in June, to convince people to flip it on your ally Robert, and keep you in the house. So I feel like, yes, it's like cool and fun and a little flashy in the beginning. Such is early Big Brother. A lot of people were like that and sort of like lacked that tact. But does it make you a good player in the long run? Not as much. So it's a give and a take. I feel like if there was like a little bit more grace with him socially, I think that he probably goes a little further.
Yeah. My thing is that I feel like, you look at June and G and the ability, especially on June's side, that she had to realize working with her ex was beneficial to her to an extent,
Mhm.
as G kind of creates his own group, and she feels some set of protection from if G is gonna be in power, or if one of G's allies are in power, that hopefully he can put in the good word to keep her safe, kind of deal. That was not the case with Justin and Allison, to my memory. I mean, obviously, Allison cast a vote to evict Justin this week. Where, what was the vote? It was 1, 2, 3, 4 votes for, 3 votes for Justin to go, 1 vote for Robert to go. So, Allison being one of those votes for Justin to go. If there's any world where they're able to pull off what June and G kind of had going on, that obviously he would have stayed in the house. So overall, I don't have the strongest impression of this guy as a player. And Asia, when you were talking about whoever this is goes through automatically,
Yeah.
as soon as you saw his name, it did seem like you walked it back.
I definitely walked it back. I was like, wait, okay, didn't anticipate this. Thinking through odds is, but I will say, it is one of those things where, like I said earlier, his archetype is the type that it does well in a season where there are other players with a similar archetype. But if there are no other like broy guys, I would find it hard for him to connect, which I do think like a large part of him making it as far as he did was Allison taking advantage of having that connection, which why wouldn't you? Unless you just despise this person, this is someone outside, way better than a stranger you just met. So it's very interesting.
And the showmancing with Dana is, a little bit more worth talking about as far as him as a player. People that approach showmances, I mean, obviously, as the game has evolved over years, there's been a lot of different ways to go about being in your showmans in the house. There are smarter ways to go about it. There are just ways to be like, I'm going to make out with this person or do whatever with this person in the house and don't care what happens. And I feel like, again, memory could be off, but I feel like Justin was one of those that like, I like Dana. We're gonna whatever, and whatever the house thinks is whatever the house thinks. So
Right.
I don't know.
This
Justin versus Kiki. What are you thinking, Aman?
I think it's pretty clear who's a better social player. And they both have like one competition win under their belts. I'd be interested to see if we flipped those competition wins and Kira was the one that ended up in power, because then I feel like some real damage is done to the real power structure of the house. Like I feel like Kira would know what to do with her HOH, whereas Justin did win in HOH and he did take out a good competitor physically, mind you, but socially, because at that point in the game, that is when June and Allison really started to begin taking control and really starting to build something there. And instead of being in on that, he sort of like got used. So I'm like, does that make you, are you worse off because you're not, it's like winning. Yeah, you win in HOH, you're in power, you get out a physical threat. Yeah, successful HOH. But is it though if it's just somebody else's dirty work? So to me, I'm like, maybe I am more leaning towards Kira. Maybe. I don't know.
Aysha, you know where you're going? While Aman struggles with the decision? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm definitely doing Kira. Only because I feel like her social ability allows her to thrive in more situations than Justin. And actually, I do think that the fact that they both were like pawns and like the game players of their seasons, this is a fair matchup, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that, I don't know, I just think Kira edges
who's
Justin
the more
out.
intelligent pawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think I'll agree. I'm always trying to give grace to the older players because I feel like we get a critique like, you guys just throw away the older players. I swear we're not trying to. It just so happens that as more time goes by, more and more people get better at Big Brother.
That's pretty much, I would say that's exactly it. The game has evolved. People learn how to play. And if you're talking about, the successful skills, there's plenty of players from the old school seasons that are going to go through. But, when we talk about most Big Brother players are bad, a lot of them from the early seasons just didn't know that, cuddling up in the HOH room with Dana for hours is, something you could avoid. I don't know. I'm going to make it 3 for 3 for sure and vote for Kiki here. Just like even more so like lack of like caring much about Justin. It's more so a testament to her that I feel like you think, where do you think Justin is right now? Where do you think he's listening to tuning into this?
He might be. Some of these old players be lurking. Okay.
I feel like
Kiki on Twitter
could have had a better chance in another season. Is really all I have on that. I don't know if she makes it through another round, but making it through one round, good enough for me. For her. Shall we move on to matchup number 2?
Yes, we shall.
Let's do it.
Let it rip, baby. Spin that wheel.
Shuffled again. Let's see where we go. Plus, I like when a BBCAN goes through over BBUS. Have I made it clear that I like BBCAN? I think I've said it enough. Up next is BBCAN.
Again, the same damn season too.
Is it really? For some reason, in my head, I might have thought he was 9, but
no, he's 7.
I shuffled. I promise. That's crazy.
Did you?
I promise.
This feels rigged.
I promise.
I keep telling y'all, Matt Rigori. Okay, he be rigging.
Oh my gosh. That is bizarre. What are the odds?
I just heard that.
No, don't laugh at it.
It just rolls right off the tongue. It just rolls right off the tongue. All right, I'm trying to find Mackie. Even because I scrolled away from Big Brother Canada 7, and I had to go all the way back to 4. So I'm bear with me. Okay, here we go. His blurb is nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
His blurb deserves so much more. All right, Mackie was evicted early and best remembered for setting a curse on the house, and that is all they have written.
And he did. Did you see BBCAN 8?
He did. That curse.
Did you know what happened in that season? He knew what he was doing. Okay, now obviously we need some more information on what happened there. And to be frank, I don't super remember what happened in this first week of BBCAN 7. It is often a week that I feel like doesn't show up on feeds. I want to say that he was on feeds 13 days in the house, as this graphic is showing me.
He was there.
Yeah, second week, yeah.
Tells you that there was at least a little bit of that on the feeds, but I don't know. Does anybody have a strong memory of what happened to this man in the season that got him booted first?
I mean, he sort of like was like one of the very first victims, if not the very first, because we didn't get a chance to really see feeds for the very first eviction when I forget the girl's name with the bald head. She's really pretty.
Laura.
She went home first. Laura. And then Maki goes next, and I remember it being because one of the pretty boys went and told Adam that Maki was going to be coming for him. And then that just made him be the target. He was originally the pawn, and then the target got flipped on him, and that's when the pretty boys were slowly starting to come together as a power group in the beginning. So that's sort of like what done him in. So really not much of a game outside of that. He just happened to target the wrong person at the wrong time, and they got his ass out of there.
Yeah, it felt like he's someone who never got to stretch his legs. It's something I see on the Big Brother wiki, is that he's tied for like the least amount of confessionals for a non-first boot. Tying Kara from Big Brother 14.
Wow.
So which apparently another stat is that Neil from Big Brother 9 got 0 confessionals at all during the season.
Okay.
But anyway, I think that just goes to show, he wasn't much of a presence if you weren't watching feeds during BBCAN 7. I don't feel like he was that active. Like, he didn't have that active of gameplay to make the episode and be relevant in a way that we'd be like, oh, well, he was able to at least do this. And so, he's just another victim.
Yeah, I remember he had like he was fine socially. I remember everyone sort of like liking Maki, and like he had like a lot of like really good energy, and he was just that guy that was like really, really friendly. He just had like, he was like a pleasure to be around. So him being a pawn in the beginning was like sincere. It just so happens that he said the wrong thing at the wrong time. Just a little thing to jog our memories. Alliances began forming very quickly. Dane, Adam, Anthony, and Mark formed the Pretty Boys Alliance. Sam, Chelsea, Stephanie, and Kira joined the Pretty Boys to form the 8 Alliance. On day 7, Dane nominated Kira and Maki for eviction. Blah, 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 blah. On day 10, Adam decided not to use the power of veto despite originally being the pawn. Maki became a target after Anthony and Kira, this is Kyra, told Adam that Maki was targeting him, and after Maki told Dane he would target him. So there you go.
Why did he do that?
He didn't know the Pretty Boys had a thing. Nobody did at that time.
Yeah,
like
true.
Like you said, you moved on from your notes of BBCAN 7. I closed my BBCAN 7 player rankings because why would I have needed them again? But I can pull them back up. I said, I'm not sure Maki knows where he is. His natural charisma will keep his house guests laughing, but I'm not sure that'll be enough. A guy with a unique personality like Maki is someone you tend to not be so threatened by. He won't be beasting through the early comps or much of a strategist. So getting to jury shouldn't be too tough. It was. When it comes down to it, I think the real gamers in the house will outmaneuver him. So yeah, it's coming back to me now. I feel like I remember the week in general, like the beginning and like obviously the way he goes out, like the very dramatic exit is like what you ultimately leave remembering from him. And I feel like it's not super far off to like figure out where he is as a player from that.
I mean,
because he's a big personality.
He was, I mean, part of the reason, I mean, it was theatrics just for the sake of being theatrics, but part of it was like he was actually pissed because there were so many people, because the vote was kind of going back and forth that week. And there was a possibility that he could have stayed. But in the end, you know, him being so vocal about who was going to target, especially after it became clear to him that he wasn't as pawn-like as initially planned, and people were starting to do the thing where, you know, they start not talking as much to the person that's going to go home because they don't want to be caught in that conversation of like, are you going to vote for me? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's when it became very clear to him, like, oh, okay, so y'all are just going to roll over because y'all are all afraid of Adam. I remember that being like a big part of his speech. Like, I'm going to stay and try to get rid of Adam. But at that point, it was just like, bruh, it's done.
Yeah.
So he just got got.
I do remember him being higher on him preseason. Yes, because I thought, like, for all the reasons you pointed out, Matt, that he was going to be non-threatening. I thought if he was able to have a solid social game, then no one's looking at him as a threat. But the fact that he was just expendable to the power players of the house, that really was just his downfall. So it is hard to evaluate like what he could have been capable of, but he is one of those people that what you see is what you get. So I don't think there's much beyond that.
I'm looking at the voting chart again, and Aman was just kind of talking through where the votes came from as this alliance. I mean, it's obviously the Pretty Boys plus Sam and Chelsea there, but I'm like trying to remember because at a certain point throughout the game, I feel like is when Anthony saw Kira and was like, I want to make them kind of like the Kira relationship with the Pretty Boys, specifically Anthony, was obviously very tumultuous throughout the season, but I feel like throughout the season it was like, well, I can get this person to vote with us or be with us or something like that. I don't think that was necessarily this early, but when you have an uncontrollable of a player in Maki and somebody who maybe will kind of just, you know, go along with what we have going on, even if we're not planning to include this person, you know, I understand why the Pretty Boys decided to go this route. Plus all of it sounds like Maki was kind of putting his foot in his mouth to, you know, refresh all of us. Okay. First boot. I do hope, Aysha, we get some bigger names for you.
I know. What is happening?
It doesn't usually go this strangely to start things off, but we have 3 more players to pull. So
all right, let's check
only
it
a matter of time, right?
I feel confident this time. Whoever we pick is going to beat out Maki.
See, I'm waiting for someone to be like, the only seasons that I know are BB. So what'd you say?
I said, unless it's Laura from this season.
Yeah, I wish I could like go in and take off the rest of 7. I'm waiting for somebody to come in and be like, the only seasons that I'm comfortable talking about are BB10 and BB7 and BB14.
Yeah.
Somebody will like pigeonhole just so we can make sure that like Dan comes up. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see who's up next. An opponent for Maki. Maybe going through. Who's to say? It's going to be Judd.
Okay.
Judd Daugherty. Here we go.
What was his name? Like Party Darty or something like that?
Something like that.
Well, look at BB15 making
we are
another
swinging through BB15, man.
Another strike into the next round. So Aysha, we have fun topics again in BB15 for you.
Right.
Aysha's gonna leave before the final round.
I know. This is not what I signed up for.
You know, but at least we're getting rid of a lot of them, so that, you know.
Yeah,
that's what the first round's about.
Yeah,
we are going to have so much fun with all of the tough matchups that come in like 2 years. But for now,
yeah.
All right, Judd. Judd was most popular for his bear shirt, which became passed around the house with other house guests. On day 49, Judd was nominated by HOH Herren for being deemed a schemer and was evicted by a unanimous vote. In week 9, Judd re-entered the game and became a part of the Exterminators. However, in week 11, Judd was backdoored in a unanimous 2-0 vote because of his temper after losing that week's POV comp. He placed 5th. On finale night, it was revealed that Judd was top 3 for AFP, but lost.
There we go. Aman, I feel like you generally start the conversations when it comes to BB15 as your first season, right, of the show, and one that you do, for better or for worse, have a strong memory for.
Yeah, it's a strong, loud, angry blur of a memory. But yeah, Judd, I remember a lot of people enjoying Judd, and to see him sort of get screwed over in that double eviction, I think was the main reason why so many people wanted to see him come back into the house. I think that he was fairly decent. I think that again, he sort of like he was a fun personality in the house. He also had like he was showmancing it up a little bit with somebody. Was
he?
It was like very, very brief, and it wasn't like hot and heavy, but I feel like I have a memory of him and Aaron like having something for like 2 seconds, and then it like disappeared. Am I wrong?
For some reason, I'm thinking Gina Marie after
Maybe it was
Nick.
Gina Marie. It was somebody. I remember him like there was like a little something where they were like, I was like, oh, interesting. That's an interesting pair.
Yeah.
His only loyalty on his wiki page is to Jesse. I don't know if that means loyalty by was he kissing Jesse or
he made out with somebody, and I was like, oh, okay. But I remember him sort of like being like someone that was sort of like in fear of a girls' alliance in the beginning of the game, which sort of like put a giant target on his back. And the what I remember the most is just him getting the short end of the stick in that double eviction, and then coming back and making the most of his game. The Exterminators probably became like one of the most, I mean, outside of like Alyssa and the MVP with Helen, I think the Exterminators really just cleaned up at the end of that game, and really took out the remnants of 3 a.m. So I think that's probably the strongest portion of his game is coming back in and getting towards the end. And I remember the freak out in the blow up at the POV ceremony, but they were going to vote him out anyway. So he was justifiably angry for having lost. So, yeah, I think he was an all-around decent middling player, but I think that until he got picked back up with the Exterminators, he kind of was just like loosey-goosey and was at will, at the mercy of like Alyssa, Helen, and then later Amanda, Andy, and Aaron.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those players that operates best just in the middle.
Yep.
Like if he's on the bottom, there's not much that he can do to get himself out of that pickle. But then also in the power position, he also has to be brought into the power position like he was with the Exterminators in order to really do something. He's not someone that's leading the charge, which is okay. Not everyone's a leader, and not everyone can like take charge and have like really like control their own agency in the game. So Judd is somebody that like I can see adapting in most seasons and finding that sweet spot in the middle where it's like, I could use Judd, but I don't necessarily want him like he's not somebody that is just like I need to get him out right away because I'm not threatened by him, but he's a number. And so it's kind of hard to ride that sweet spot of just like being seen as a number, not as a threat, just being seen as useful enough to not get rid of, which I think Judd has like his personality type just fits perfectly in.
Yeah. Like if he ends up getting dragged to the end somehow, if he's at the final 3 and he's just like the more appealing person that you're going to take to the final 2 because you think that they have less of a resume or something like that, there's a chance that he still picks up some votes because of, being a good social player. But I think he still is going to come across like that player that you feel like you can bring to the end if you ended up at that far with him. I think in most circumstances, he's not going to get that far in the way that he gets evicted twice throughout his season because you don't want to bring him to the end pretty much for those reasons. But yeah, I mean, if that is him as a player, look, I mean, he's got a pretty good matchup here. So, that aside, as far as like him as, compared to even other players that are kind of on the same tier as him, obviously not trying to compare him to any of the greats. I don't know. I feel like he was probably getting, I don't know, like 6s on the BB15 stock watch that didn't exist. Just kind of like consistent kind of presence in the house. And then obviously, on the weeks that he's going to be in a lot more danger, not so much. But yeah, I feel like he is not somebody that I think of as too terrible of a player. He's also somebody that I feel like in the same vein, similar-ish as Amanda, if not for blah, 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 everything. Do you think Judd would have gotten asked back?
Maybe. I mean,
The bear shirt, was that enough to get him a call back?
I
I
think
don't think so.
he definitely was not like one of the people that was saying as crazy. I mean, he definitely said some stuff. Let's not be, let's be real. He definitely wasn't as bad. But like when the bar is already so low.
I was gonna say the BB15 scale of like as bad or what was said.
Yeah. It's
what
like
a fun game that
the
is.
least problematic thing
Right.
of like stealing some wine and saying F those have-nots to calling a black girl Shaniqua. Like where do you fall in there? And I feel like he's probably towards the middle. So I'm like, yeah, I don't think he's coming back.
Okay. I feel like my memory of on a binge was just again with the bear shirt. I feel like it was and then obviously him making top 3 for AFP like makes me think that he was enough of a fan favorite at the time that like it could have been.
This is when people were
realistic.
still so obsessed with like middle America accents. Like there was always like that Southerner or that someone from the Midwest, and everybody would just go up for those people because they're like, oh my god, look at those people that are like not from the city. They're so cool and funny.
So cool. I mean, this was BB15, so Donnie was 16.
Yep.
Yeah.
They always got somebody. Always.
Okay, well, Judd versus Maki is the competition that we are presented with here. Look, we gotta have the matchups. Anybody have a case for Maki?
No.
I really don't. I can't even sit here and try to make something up.
Yeah.
No, he's
6-5. He was 1 vote away from staying. Do you think he becomes a pretty boy? He says, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to target you guys. I actually meant I wanted to work with you.
It was too late. They had already formed the alliance at that point. Like, and he tried to target one of them. That was it. That was the whole point of the pretty boys, is to keep each other safe. And
yeah,
he was a threat. They had to get rid of him. So yeah, I mean, he was a funny person. I thought his energy was great on feeds, but outside of that, like, I think you have to have strong, solid numbers before you start putting targets out there, especially in the beginning of the game, because at that point, that's when you need to be the most cautious, I think, because you don't know what other beginning conversations people are having, what other alliances are being talked about. Like, and if you're not in them and you're not privy to them, you just have to automatically assume that they are happening. And so for you to then automatically say, without any power, mind you, this is who I'm going after, it's not good. So
yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking at the bracket. We are, if this goes how I'm expecting it to, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th matchup in a row that we are going to have a 3-0 result. These decisions have been made easy. No wonder Aysha's got like not a whole lot to yell at us about, because some of these matchups are easy.
Yeah.
Are we 3-0 here? Judd's going through.
Yeah. Sorry, Maki. Don't put a plague on the podcast, please.
I think he might, and honestly, I may vote for him just to switch that. No, I'm not going to, but I don't want that. Look what happened the next season.
Yeah,
not good stuff.
Yeah, that was wild.
All right, fingers crossed here.
Not us blaming Maki for COVID-19.
Right.
We would not be the first. There's Reddit threads on it. Aysha, we got this.
Yes.
We can do this.
Here we go.
The first player for our final matchup of the day here. 2 players left to go. We're looking for a big name here. Will it be this person? Andy!
Wow!
So back-to-back BBCAN7, kind of, and then truly back-to-back BB15. Okay, but we have a big name.
That is a big name.
Crazy name. Sorry, I just gotta.
I think this will be.
Amon's texting all of his friends. Andy came up on the wheel.
This weird. I'm good. Sorry.
This is awesome because, yeah, I think when we think of Big Brother 15, it's usually like kind of our reaction to getting Judd, right? But which is funny because this is the second double from the same, or this is the second player from the same season tonight. But yeah, I'm very excited to talk about Andy.
All right, let's bring up his little blurb. And Andy,
What's
who also famously
Oh no. What are you gonna say?
called out Matt at the beginning of our podcast. So he definitely is going to be, if he has not been watching, I'm sure he's probably caught at least, or maybe he's
because
been
what
like,
was I
screw
doing?
y'all.
I was tagging
You tagged a bunch of
I was like, who's gonna be the greatest of all time?
And completely snubbed his ass.
And I swear to God, I had written his handle down. I think I don't know what happened. That it didn't end up in the final tweet, but he said, hello.
This sounds like you're making excuses. Andy, I would have always tagged you, okay?
Oh, sure. Remind us, for those who may not remember,
all right,
Andy's game.
Andy playing an extremely quiet game in the beginning. Andy formed a close alliance with power couple Amanda and McCrae, while managing a tight alliance with Alyssa and Helen to keep himself safe from the MVP's nominations. Andy flipped on his alliance with Helen and Alyssa to take the former out. After solidifying a Final Four alliance with the Exterminators, Andy backstabbed Amanda and McCrae and manipulated McCrae into taking out Alyssa. Andy is mainly remembered for his deception and backstabbing, namely Helen, Amanda, and Alyssa. He utilized his social capital to avoid ever being a target and never received an eviction vote. His ability to lie effectively allowed him to pull off multiple blindsides while continuing to be in good standing. Despite being deemed a rat by viewers and contestants alike, Andy was granted the win in a final vote of 7-2, making history as the first openly gay winner.
There we go. Aysha, I feel like a lot of people, very obviously, understandably so, have a lot of good things to say about Andy as a player, his game. Why does he not come up in more conversations about being the GOAT?
Because of the season.
Yeah.
It's purely because of the season. I think if the season if BB15 didn't have such the negative connotations with the behavior for most of the house guests, then Andy would be in the conversations of Dan and Dr. Will and Derek easily. But I think the way that people are able to really see the beauty of Andy's game is on a rewatch. Because I know watching it live, I was like, oh, we get to the end and Andy wins and you're like, okay, kind of relieved because okay, that's a good winner, right? And then you're like, but this season, man. But when you rewatch it and you especially rewatching it, knowing that Andy wins, you're really able to concentrate on what he's doing. I also think this was my very first season with feeds. So even though I started, watching Big Brother 5, Big Brother 15 was my first season with feeds. So it was a lot to digest, right? Watching feeds that season. Because it was so hard to focus on gameplay when you had so much other stuff going on. But I do think that when you do rewatch it and you focus on gameplay, you're like, wow, what Andy was able to do this season was masterful because he really capitalized on his position in the game and knew that we got that one episode where everybody's like, I trust Andy. No one was on to him. And so it was people may see him as a rat, but he was a rat that got the cheese, it's not a situation where oh, never want to play like a rat. No, you absolutely do if that's what's going to benefit you and get you to the end. I think he knew exactly what he needed to do with the people around him, which is why I think that Andy is definitely one of the best winners that we have in Big Brother US. And obviously, and the reason he's not in these GOAT conversations because his win is tainted by the behavior of his fellow house guests. But it's just it can't be overlooked. Being able in on blindside after blindside after blindside, and then and then coming and people still not being onto you.
Yeah. I also think I agree 100%. I also think in addition, I don't think that production really knew how to handle Andy as a character. I think that they were expecting him to be, the fabulous gay. That's what they wanted from him, and that's not really what they got. So he's been, if there's one thing that Andy's gonna do on Twitter, it's talk shit about and Andy, if you see this, don't come for me because you be doing it, okay? You know what you be doing. So And justifiably so. Like, I think he a lot of he didn't really get a lot of confessionals until towards the end, when there were less people in the house, when he became much more of like a necessary figure within the storytelling of what was going on in the season. But all the other like work that he had done up until that point was kind of overlooked, because they were much more focused on Alyssa and Helen and Amanda and Aaron, and then of course, as Aysha pointed out, all the other stuff that they had to like deal with. Andy really became sort of an afterthought. So then there was like this rush to like figure out how to form his story towards the end. And so I think that in a lot of people's minds, it's easy to forget what happened because it just simply was not shown. And he didn't really get a lot of chances to talk about it. So yeah, I think Andy is a superb winner. And I think I agree with you 100%, Aysha. I think that he knew exactly how to handle the people that he was with. Because I think it's his cast was crazy. Okay. Like there were fights every other day, like rude insults being thrown, people flipping mattresses. Like these people had it out. They were out for blood with one another. And he knew exactly how to go from one room to the next and be like, oh, so yeah, I think that it's probably best if we do this because that person's definitely, they're going to come for you. Like, they hit you, right? Like all of that kind of stuff. Like, and I remember being so infuriated sometime with him because I was such an Alyssa stan. I just wanted Alyssa to make it to the end, and I hated Amanda, and I hated Gina Marie, and I hated Aaron. And Alyssa was like the main figure of the opposition to that. And so when he came up with that lie to convince McCrae to get her out, I wanted his head. I was so mad, and I was so upset that McCrae would listen to him. But he had done so much work with McCrae, and he'd been working with them for so long that there was no reason for McCrae not to believe Andy. And that is his game. It's like, and I remember there was a quote that Alyssa had during the jury roundtable. She was like, yeah, Andy lied to me, but Andy's so cute when he's lying to you. Like, it's hard to be mad at him. Like, yeah. And that was it. Like, he was just able to get away with so much because he had such an unassuming personality, non-threatening, but he knew what to tell people to get them riled up. He knew what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wouldn't appreciate this being said out loud on a podcast, but I'm going to say it anyway, that like if there was an all-winner season, I have him at the top of my board as picks to take the competition down there. I feel like he is just one of the most Big Brother minded people, in the same vein as like, people like, Dan study the game, Ian study the game, like all these previous greats and whatnot that had come before him that like knew Big Brother front and back. And I feel like that was him as well. But he came at it from a perspective of ultimately being the first openly gay winner, a path that he had to create himself. Because there obviously are additional challenges that come with just kind of having that be the big difference between you and a lot of other people on the cast that you can't relate to, especially the men on the cast, and finding a way to not coexist, but just like to get along with them and to befriend them and, just kind of be one of everybody else in the house and also just have control over the entire chaos that went on in that season. And, no ifs, ands, or buts around it that he did it masterfully. So I do think, Aysha, you're exactly right as to why he's not as often included in the conversation, but that's just kind of like at a certain point, it's like, okay, everybody talks about Dan, Will, Derek, whatever. But when you get into like, if you've looked back at like some of the like RHAP rankings and podcasts and like the days with Parhar being around and whatnot, like when we really saw panels of Big Brother viewers, experts dive deeper into like winner rankings and talk about like the players who had the best executed strategy, knowledge of the game, and used everything they were capable of to their best abilities. Those are the conversations that you see where Andy shines, and gets the credit that he, deserves for the game that he played there. So, will be very tough before whoever gets pulled next to survive.
Almost impossible.
Yeah. But we were looking for a big name. We got a winner, back-to-back BB15s, but there's Andy. And when he goes through to future rounds, it'll be, interesting to see him matched up against, some of these other big names as well. And to have these conversations, as that's the point of what we're doing here. So
I remember there was one thing, I don't know if it was on a podcast or an interview or whatever it was. I remember him talking about a strategy that he would often use where he would purposefully leave objects in rooms that belonged to him just so that he could go back in to see what people were talking about in the room. And I'm just like, that's someone who was like
so smart.
Yeah. you are a fucking fan of this game, and you just
I knew that was the Andy playbook or part of Andy's game before I ever watched BB15. Just from being a Big Brother fan, I had heard about that, and then for seasons to come, it has become something that I think, especially super fans, are always going to think back to, like that Andy had a big part in letting people know that that's a thing that you should do, and it's just definitely a thing that people have done more in the years since then, I would say.
Yep.
So there is Andy. I gotta say, I'm a little scared because when you have such a big name, knowing that the person who comes up next is more than likely to not go through, I sometimes sit around and think about, like, what if there was a first round matchup between two goats?
I mean, it's possible.
What would happen? Imagine we go through the first 4 picks that we had just to get Legend versus Legend.
Titan matchup.
Insane.
I mean, well, now that if it doesn't happen, we're disappointed. So thanks for putting that.
No, I don't want it to happen. I'm not ready for that kind of stress right now.
And all the attacks.
Aysha, one last name here for you. Who's it going to be? I'm so scared. I'm so
Someone
scared.
that can't beat Andy.
Really? Not only is it someone who wasn't going to beat, but it's somebody who walked. It's someone who literally quit.
Oh boy. Podcast listeners, who did we pull? Amal. I believe is how you say her name, from Big Brother Canada 11.
11, yeah. And no disrespect to Amal, because I think it was revealed that she had to go for it was like a family emergency or something like that, if I remember correctly. So, I'm not gonna knock her for having to leave the game, but it's just so what are the odds that we get?
I'm sitting here freaking out that one of the big names is
it might be debatable. No.
Yeah.
Aysha, I would love to hear it. And
look, if Aman can make a case for Victoria over Jed.
Tell me about it.
I thought that was a little shady. Thank you, Aysha.
Is there even a blurb for Amal?
Amal coming into the game as a massive super fan, even listing it as her occupation. Amal unfortunately walked from the game due to unknown personal reasons, finishing in 16th place.
This could be the shortest conversation we've had on a player. And we talked about recently the BB9 walker, Jacob, right? Is that his name? No, Neil.
No, not Neil. Neil.
Jacob was BB9 as well, but that was not yet.
The first
in the very last episode, actually, with Lavina, we talked about Neil. Somebody else who was not around very long, Amal, I think around for less in this 4 days played of Big Brother Canada, was not there when the feeds turned on.
The digital dailies, you mean?
The dailies. Oh God, you're right.
Yeah.
Amal.
She also, on that same stat we talked about earlier, she also didn't have a single confessional. She was the first Canadian contestant not to have a confessional aired on TV.
Yeah.
And again, no disrespect to her. I just because obviously she had to go for whatever she had to go for. But I just remember people being so upset with her. People were bashing her on Twitter because we were already in a volatile state because of the digital dailies thing. And then when the feeds come on and one is already gone, everyone's like, "F that." She can't believe she took a spot away. I can't believe she would do this. I'm like, girl, there's more to life than Big Brother. She probably has something going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just hope she's okay.
Cracking up that I was sitting here being like, again, some legend is going to pop up and it's somebody who was in the game for 4 days. Well, BBCAN 11, huh? How about that season?
How about that?
I was looking at, by the way, going back to BB15, we've pulled on 6 players from, I forgot to highlight one of them. We've pulled 7 players.
It feels like more than that. We are
from that
almost
season.
Halfway.
That's wild.
Right? Of all of the players still remaining, we have pulled Andy, McRae, Judd, Amanda, Aaron, Helen, and Nick Uhas. Only 9 left to go. That is looking to be the first season that is off the board in this round. And who's gone through? So
Well, you know what?
Uh,
At least we are getting rid of some of the ones that are like the most controversial, and Aaron and Amanda.
Amanda's still through.
Well, I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of like on the
Oh,
wheel
like
for now.
having the conversation now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So about Andy, how about that Andy guy? It's a battle
Yeah, I
of the
mean,
4-letter names that start with A.
I mean, I mean, this one is, unless his full name was Andrew, which it could be.
Could be.
Yeah, unfortunate matchup. I mean, if people were hard pressed to beat Andy in this conversation, but this is like a more than a layup. This is like
It's like a first seed versus a 16th seed.
yeah.
You know what's happening here? Aysha does have another podcast coming up in a little bit, and somebody was looking down to make sure that she's going to get out of here on time.
He said, "Let's go ahead and do them all."
Yeah, that's great. But look, when it comes down to like this podcast and us including people, like BBCAN 8's on there, even though they played, a couple of days. People like Amal, who obviously played 5 minutes. There are some of them that we don't have a lot to talk about, that we have enough to talk about. This is a very rare case where like we have no idea. This woman was barely on an episode, but like, I don't know. It would feel weird for me to be like, for us to advertise this podcast as it's all of the BBUS seasons minus BB1 and Amal.
I feel like Andy's going to be upset that he didn't get more of
a proper
more of a fight
opponent. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, Andy clearly the better player here. I hope Amal is well in life right now. Who knows? The Big Brother.
Yeah, she was active on Twitter, but I'm not sure
right?
she's
was
still involved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean,
shall we take a vote?
I feel like giving her a vote just to be indicative,
just for respect.
If you first of all want Andy to not, or if you would like him to come after you, go for it. Also, if there's ever a world where after my snub that we get Andy to talk to us on this podcast, I recommend not casting that vote.
I kind of want to do it.
Another 3-0.
Amon's messy. He says I'm messy, but I'm just messy towards him.
I'm gonna vote for them all.
Get out of here. It's funny because I was just about to say another 3-0 matchup, but maybe not. Aysha, would you like to cast your vote?
I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. Yeah, Andy, naturally.
Okay. So I will also cast my vote for Andy.
I'm gonna piss off Andy. I'm gonna vote for him. No, I'm kidding. I'm gonna vote for Andy. I really want to though, just for the meme.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that said, to recap what happened in this episode, very BBCAN-y, very BB15-y. I don't know how that happened, but
yeah, to be honest,
that's where we went here. We had in our first matchup, Kiki from BBCAN7 is going through to the next round over BB4's Justin. In the second matchup, we had Judd from BB15 going through over BBCAN7 second boot, I guess technically, Maki, first evicted. And then in our final matchup, we got our big name. We got a winner here. BB15 again, going through to the next round is Andy Herren. We'll see round 2 in a very close matchup against BBCAN11 player who walked, Amal.
Wow, not two BBCAN15 people making it through.
Say BBCAN15. I would love BBCAN15.
That's the name of this episode, BBCAN15.
That is a good name.
Yeah.
It might be the only place you'll ever be able to go to get your BBCAN15. But
BBCAN15 with the forgotten BB4 Justin.
And honestly, that brings us in full circle because we were spending the beginning of the podcast talking about future BBCAN seasons. And 13 would be next. If we could get a 13, why not a 14? Why not a 15?
I'm
gotta figure something else out.
I'm confident.
Yeah.
I'm here
for it. With all that said, Aysha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate y'all for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. You can follow me at Aysha like Asia. That's AYSHA like ASIA, just to see what I'm up to. Lately, I have a recap of Love is Blind UK with Jason Reed and Mary Kwiatkowski. So we talked about the entire season. Just give our thoughts about everything. A lot of people have been watching it, and it's the UK's first time having Love is Blind. I personally liked it better than the US. A lot more mature individuals who were deciding they wanted to get married. So you can definitely go give it a listen. And yeah, anything else I'm up to, definitely go give me a follow.
There we go. Thank you again, Asia, and we'll certainly hope to have you back in the future with some tougher matchups, maybe along the way.
It's
For
too
sure.
easy.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. Maybe sometimes I'm like, should I put my finger on the scale? No, because then I really am Matt Rigori. But I'm on Twitter at Matt Ligori. The podcast, of course, is at Diary Room PCast. Check me out over on the Free Agents podcast with Brian Scally, talking the Challenge 40. Popping in and out over on RHAP, talking BB26. And I'm over on Patreon, where we got lots of fun stuff happening. Patreon.com/The Diary Room.
Yes, make sure that you subscribe for all of the early access, hidden access, all the tea, all the losers brackets, all that stuff. It's a great time. We just recorded another episode, as we mentioned earlier today. So really, really exciting stuff. You can always catch all of us talking BB26 over at RHAP and anywhere else. So yeah, this has been a lot of fun. We want to say thank you to Aysha once again for joining us for another episode. I'm sure she will be back. And I believe that is it. Should I close this out?
That's it. Get us out of here.
Alrighty then, guys. Until next time, please go to the diary room.